thank you for the presentation. You're basically telling us that the milk is not the constraints. The milk, where does it come from? You've got enough milk to face the increase in the future.
It's a strict protocol how to produce halloumi. Okay, it's controlled by the government, and it requires that we keep 20% minimum of goats and sheep, and the rest of the 80% is cow's milk. Cow's milk, there's plenty of it. Cows and sheep, it's a bit tight. Okay, so you manage and you build your contracts and your agreements beforehand to have the available milk, because we're not allowed to produce halloumi with imported milk. It has to be from Cyprus. But when you need more milk, you talk with the farmers, they keep more animals, and they give you more milk. Dangerous, but this is what we do.
Also a question about the raw material, because, I mean, you have a very strong seasonality, so most of the time the constraints is how do you do? Because the goat, you cannot just switch them on or switch them off. They are producing every day nearly the same quantity. So how do you manage, do you put your goat level at the higher level, and what do you do with the milk in the low season, or how do you balance that? Because very often that's the problem in dairy industries.
I agree with you. This is a huge problem that we have, to be honest. This time of the year, we have a lot of milk, okay? But this time of the year, we need to build that stock. The protocol says that you need to have minimum 20% of sheep and goats, okay? So we make our agreements with the farmers to be sure that we have 20% in the high season, okay? So it's more costly through the rest of the year, where you have sheep and goats to 40% and 50% of milk.
So it means that the recipe is not the same, depending upon when we are buying the Halloumi cheese. We have more or less...
yes.
Okay.
Yep. This is with almost all the cheeses. Huh? Depending on the maturity, depending on many things. The shelf life is 12 months. So when we say we are building stock, you just increase the base of your customers. You don't, basically you stock in time, okay? You don't have all the 600 tons in the store and you take from that stock and you pack. You open your base, you ask orders faster, okay? So you are covered for the next 15 days and you proceed with this way. It is, yes. It has an organic growth of 20-25% every year. So my life as an export manager is not that difficult. I may complain, but it's not that difficult. But I mean, yes, we develop new categories like the round shape, which is we supply McDonald's as well in the whole Gulf area. It's value-added products, and you try to fit in this 25 in your flow. Those 5 categories, this is the next step. Okay, instead of having 27 tons every day of one category, to have different categories through your pipeline. So it's challenging, yeah.
Is there no limit to the capacity of the brining process because you put it in the sea?
Not in No, actually what you have to do, of course, okay, to prepare the brining process, you have another flow. And this is a much more complicated flow than this one, okay? To have the brine, to keep it on the specific percentage of salt, and to recirculate it, and it's a complicated process, okay? So when we increase the flow rates, we increase the flow rate of the brining process as well, because suddenly we needed 3 times more brine than what we had. Because this is square meters, basically. It's much easier. You just need a cold store and yeah, okay. We changed the bins that we were putting the halloumi in, and we could put 3 on the top, so we took advantage of the whole volume of the fridge. This is not that clever, that's why I didn't mention it.
I have a question. The logical thinking process you did not mention. what you think about logical thinking and logical thinking process.
Okay, to be honest, I believe that to apply the logical thinking process, you need a facilitator. Okay, I don't believe that you can teach someone the logical thinking process and that they can do it alone. I think that they are different from the way we think. You need to shift your mind to a systemic level so you can create these trees from different perspectives. For example, to build a current reality tree, you must have the ability to think of different parts, not from your own personal world. So I think that if you have a facilitator in-house and it helps you to start, I think that you can do miracles with this. Because you need also patience, and the most important thing I believe is facilitation.
Okay, how did you end up going for a doctorate in theory of constraints?
It wasn't planned. Basically what happened, it was when I was in the supply chain position, I implemented the replenishment solution on the logistical side. Okay, at that time I was on a course with Dr. Holt in the Washington State University. So he encouraged me to go and present the case in the TOCICO presentation in Berlin in 2013. I was smoking at that time, and this is where I met you outside smoking. And there I met several people. Okay, you do really good network there. And after a few months, they had a presentation about theory of constraints in Strasbourg at the university. So I said, okay, why not? So I went there just for the experience, just for the fun of it, just to present the same presentation that I did in the TOCPA. And when I stepped into the university, I met a professor, you know exactly what happened. And mainly you affected a lot of it. We went out at night for dinner. Okay, I was sitting on the table, Philip was next to me, and the professor was on the other side of the table. And they were talking French. And my French is fluently. So I couldn't understand what they were saying. And then Philip turns to me and he says, you know, this guy, he's looking for PhD students in theory of constraints. And there is where the seed was planted, okay? And then it started working by itself.
It's not the version I wanted. You play it very casual, Halloumi, ha-ha. How many books do you read a year? Okay, now I read a lot because I have no choice, okay? You have no choice.
I have no choice. I have to go through the whole literature. I have to go through the whole literature to defend the thesis.
How many books before you started?
But before that, I was a self-learner. Okay, I bought books. I was reading alone. Cyprus, Greece has nothing to do with theory of constraints. Nobody has ever done it before. Nobody knows anything about it. So you are an alien. Okay, so the only thing to survive is to avoid jargon words. You don't tell them theory of constraints because they think that it's high mathematically. So if you want to sound too mathematical, okay, you say theory of constraints. And then they are blocked. So you avoid the jargon words. And I mean, I like to, when I discuss with people, because now I also teach in Cyprus, I discuss with metaphors. For example, I like to discuss about the flow rate as a river, where you have the lakes, which is your inventory, and when you go dry, you're out of stock, okay? Or use as a system, the concept of a system, the car, okay? A car is a system that it has a characteristic that its parts doesn't have. So if you manage to see a car as a system, you see behaviors that they don't exist in the parts. So when you connect with the people at that level, okay, and they understand, then you take them a bit higher and a bit higher and a bit deeper. But it takes time. It's much faster if you have a proper education. Huh? And the only network that I did, it was through the internet. And at that time it was a CMSIG something that I met. I came in contact with Dr. Holt from that discussions there. And I ended up taking his courses and a new world opened up.
Okay, I'm just trying to highlight that several of the people that they're presenting to you, whether they mention it or not, they spend a lot of their time learning, right, and thinking.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation. Basically, you increase the production. What is the root cause? Is it the market demand, or is it, let's say that somebody decide to increase it and then marketing has to sell it?
We were getting the statistics from the Cyprus statistical services, and we were seeing that we couldn't catch up with the growth of the market. We couldn't do it. Okay, so they took a decision to buy another plant. They have found it actually when I got into the operations. So this could happen, or we would have another plant now. I don't know.
It's a question about this, but also more generally about the trees and the logical thinking and so on. We have not chosen that path. We kind of start from the DBR and more manufacturing pure. We have not gone this logical. It seems, as you said, it seems to be like there's a high threshold and a kind of a, at the end of the day, some kind of a very theoretical result, or result which is not, which takes a lot of time to get there. So, was wondering, as we are in a practitioner conference, Philip or Spyros, I mean, is it worth the investment on that to come to the change, or should we start to push a little bit at the beginning, see the results on the DBR first, and go back maybe to this logical thinking? We haven't used this logical thinking in the trees and the cloud, and maybe I don't know, we're missing something, but it's not like we have the feeling that we miss it, and when we see it, it seems very complex.
I'm going to let Spyros answer in his words, but we run every year a full 6-day course about logical thinking, and I always try and be there to watch these people going through it, right? And it's fascinating because you learn about how people think, how they take decisions and so forth by watching how they react through the 6 days. And the answer is it's very, very, very different from one person to another. It depends on the person. Some people need and have the capability of being extremely logical, and they will use it early. Others just never get it. I'll probably die the most illogical person in the world.
But what outcome, Spyros? I mean, we showed this huge chart.
Yes.
In Greek on top, but the big one. Yeah.
That one.
And I mean, as we are in a practitioner conference, we were wondering, okay,
I overreacted.
Should we also start this, or should we not start this? What is this for? It's for sure you come up to very logical what it is, but it seems like there's a high threshold to get there, and as you said, a low usability after that within the circle of privileged understanders, whatever it is.
Okay, my opinion is that you will go through that even if you like it or even if you don't like it. We are living in two lands, in the land of theory and in the land of practice. Okay? Before we move the walls and install new VATs, we have to think with one way or the other way. This is one way. Okay? First of all, at that time, I didn't have any special, any formal education about the trees. So all this thing was from the books. That's why this procedure helped me to build the future reality tree. If you have a proper training, I think it's very useful, okay, because you have to model your logic, and other people have to see what you think, and this is very difficult, okay. But you will go through this with arrows or without arrows.